Trinity Force podcast. Adam's out for the night. He abandoned us for some baseball games. So in the meantime, we're going to bring you some patch 5.7 notes. And with me, we have Punch.
Hey.
Declawed.
Howdy.
All I care
And
about
Chira.
is nucleus
Hi,
is
I'm right
better
here.
than Hyde Pipe.
And I do want to throw Adam under the bus because this morning he's like, yeah, I'll send you the overlay to get the stream set up for later. Rolls around to like 4 o'clock, not a single overlay was sent, and I just ended up using an old
You
one.
can't be bothered with that shit.
Are
He
you
was
the
sick.
one?
It was a test of your preparedness.
Well,
and you did a good. You passed.
Apparently,
Good job.
I'm the most prepared, so we did it, boys
Yes.
and girl.
Do it.
We got it going. As
Yep.
long as we got it started, that's fine, right?
That's all that matters, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, before we get on to the patch notes, we're going to just go over a couple of announcements. We do have a new Teespring promotion going on right now, which is the Optimus Poppy shirts. They're actually pretty cool looking. You guys should take a look at them. Plus, every one you buy just pisses off Optimus Tom a little bit more.
And if
I
you
think we had like 4 rioters buy them already or something like that.
if you
But
need,
if you like the guy, it also makes him smile inside a little bit. He's like,
It does.
right.
He secretly loves it.
yeah,
He
you could.
He
secretly
said-
loves it.
He might have been bitching all along on the last episode of the LCS rundown, but deep down he was smiling.
He said
My
if all
favorite
50
part-
sell, that he's gonna stream as Poppy for some
Oh, yeah.
predetermined amount of time.
A Poppy only stream, yeah. My favorite part of it was when his mom tweeted that she bought her entire family them. So
really?
And then he died
That's
inside.
awesome.
all right. So yeah, if we sell 50, he'll spend an entire day streaming, and they're only $20 and shipping, which is about $2 to $3. It directly supports the show, so it helps us get new podcasts going for you guys, new equipment, and things like that. And there's about 19 days left to go ahead and order your shirt if you're interested. So definitely take a look at that. You can go to teespring.com/tforcepoppy, or if you go to our Reddit URL, you can go ahead and look for the link there. OzLoL is doing an iTunes review giveaway, so if you go ahead and rate them, and they get 30 by the end of the month, then you have an opportunity to win $10 in RP. So go ahead and do that. Yeah, it's a nice little giveaway that we can do. We're going to start doing more and more giveaways like that, giving back to the community and trying to just help the podcast and the community grow in general. And as for the last announcement, the Fourwards podcast is doing a super episode. They want to know what basics you want covered. Like, nothing is too basics. Like, if you don't know what OMW means and you think that someone's like cursing you out in chat and you don't realize they're saying on my way.
Word.
I know, exactly. Don't laugh, because I really
exactly
thought
what-
that for a while. When I was leveling up and everyone was like, oh my OMG, every time someone did something bad, they'd be like, OMW bot, and I was like, God damn it, I didn't do anything. Why are you yelling at me?
I used to think LOL meant lots of love.
I also, this is unrelated
I
to
really
League,
did.
but has
That's
anybody
just bad.
has anybody noticed that if you type OMW into like an iPhone or something like that, it says on my way and like with the O in caps and gives me an exclamation point, and every time I send it to my girlfriend, she gets so happy because she thinks the phone's trolling me. So
Yeah, but then you get people who say BT dubs instead of just saying by the way in real life.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
But yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned. I'm glad they're doing that basic episode because their first few episodes they were using some acronyms like CS. And what if people don't know what CS means, for example?
Yeah,
So-
and things like AD and AP, like a lot of people when they first
That's a good
start playing this game, thinking that if you use spells, it scales off of AP and things like that. So for every one of us, there's silly things that we thought when we first started playing this game. So if you have them, send in your questions to tforce or to feedback@trinityforcepodcast.com. And we'll try to answer them for you, or they will actually on the Fourwards podcast. And it's just a really good way for everyone to kind of get all of the terms on the table, make sure that you're understanding everything. Any question that you think is too like noob friendly to send in, this is the time to do it, because there's literally nothing that they're going to be like, oh, this is too basic, we're not going to cover it. So it's actually a really, really good thing, because it's surprising how many things people don't know when you
It's like
first
a
start this
glossary
game.
podcast. That should be something
Yeah.
they should permalink on the site. It's like a little glossary of terms or something.
Well, after playing the game for 2 or 3 years, you forget all those little things that you didn't realize when you first started. So
Right,
this
you
is
just say 'em.
Yeah. You can also tweet them to Trinity Force Network, T-Force Network, if you want to, and we'll add them to the document for them. And as for that, we're going to start with the patch 5.7 notes, which came out yesterday. They actually gave us a day warning for it, which is nice. And yeah, so let's go ahead and start, and Punch can read us Bard changes.
Oh, I would love to. So Bard got some slight buffs. His base attack damage went up by 6 points, from 46 to 52. His base armor went up from 21 to 25. They also affected his passive, Traveler's Call. The Meep respawn time has been decreased by 2 seconds at all ranks, from 10 seconds at rank 1 to 6 seconds at max rank. And the mana restore he gains from picking up a chime was increased to 12% of his maximum mana. They also affected his Q by increasing the base damage at the last rank by 20. So it's the same damage at the first rank, 80, and then it goes up to 260 from 240. And the ability power has been increased by 0.15 as well. So some nice buffs for him.
I haven't played him since this little buff, but that passive for picking up the chimes, the 12% maximum mana seems better as the game goes on. I don't know how it is early, depending on how much you're missing when you decide to go roaming around. Not that it matters if you're not missing too much, but I'm curious to see how that is. It looks more consistent than a wonky flat 15 plus 8% missing mana, and so I like it.
I'm
I
not
don't think
sure
it's going to make him strong by any means. I definitely don't think he's going to see competitive play. And I just don't think that he's going to be strong in solo queue either. I mean, a lot of his abilities are pretty situational. They can't be used that often. I don't know. I just feel like he's not really great in lane. He's not really great at roaming. I mean, I know he's supposed to be roaming support, but I don't know. I think it's questionable.
And not to mention his ult trolls certain situations without the player necessarily meaning for them to as well. So like I know a lot of people will gripe when Bard's in their game just because they feel like that ult messes up kill potential unless it's executed extremely well. So
even if it's executed extremely well though, so if you use it to try to split off a team and try to ult 3 and then you take out 2, kind of like a Gragas ult, no matter what you do, even if you hit a perfectly executed ult where you hit 3 or 4 of them and you leave someone out, I feel like a Gragas ult would be better, a Sona ult would be better, a Leona ult would be better. If you're gonna think about CCing 4 people at a time, I can think of a million different ults that I would rather use than his.
Or CCs that you can actually do things to people in.
Right.
So.
And Days, you mentioned his weak laning and roaming, and I think those two are kind of tied hand in hand. That being, his laning is weak, and as a result, he usually falls behind in lane, and you don't want to roam when you're behind. If you're at an experience disadvantage, if you're behind, if you have an experience disadvantage, and then you start roaming, you're just going to fall further behind in experience. Same goes with gold, and you're also not going to have a huge impact when you're ganking or doing whatever it is you're doing. I'm assuming you're ganking, or you're just putting down heals somewhere in the jungle to help out your jungler, and not getting any experience. Again, falling further behind. So these changes don't really seem to address his weak early laning phase. Like we said, the damage on Q at rank 1 is still untouched. That scales a little bit over time, but
he's unique.
And that will help a little, but
he's, like you said, he's not very... I don't think he's very useful competitively. He's kind of fun, if you like the little scavenger hunt kind of thing. You see a chime, you get a little bit of excitement when you go, oh, I can go pick that up. You get the movement speed. When you start chain picking them up together, you get faster and faster. That's kind of fun. The magical journey's neat, especially when you put it in neat places. But he's just... I agree with everything everybody says here. He just doesn't seem as useful as other supports.
Right.
What he can do.
Sorry, go ahead.
For all you Bard players, if you like him, just keep on meeping on.
Keep meeping on.
Absolutely. And he, you can, I played a game with him where I chased a lot of times. I probably was out of lane way too much. And you can stay up on XP for it. But that almost makes you stay out of lane longer than you need to because you have to go get those chimes. If you're leaving lane, you have to go pick them up to make up for the time that you're out of lane. So it almost keeps you out of lane longer than you normally would if you were just roaming.
Depending on where you're going, yeah.
Yeah, and his Q isn't the most reliable CC there is. It's not like when you're roaming, like the old Taric roams of old, or Alistar, or things like that, or Leona, where you had a little bit more potential. Like, you have to line that up really well if you're going to come out of like the river and come into mid lane. So it's just difficult.
Maybe the bigger change for his laning, maybe, would be the Meep respawn time, the amount of times he can use that to harass with his auto attacks. Now that it's 2 seconds shorter, he can use that to harass more often.
Right. That's a buff. That's a clear-cut buff.
I do also want to say that it's going to be kind of difficult for them to necessarily find a sweet spot to balance this champion, just because if they make his laning presence too strong, then he's not going to do kind of what his core identity is, which is supposed to be a roaming support. And if he's too effective at roaming because going to get chimes every time they're up is the de facto best thing to do all the time, it leaves your AD carry in a position where they're probably getting shoved to the turret 2v1 the entire time, and depending on what support the enemy's playing, they're getting harassed like crazy. So like, you want to talk about the levers that Riot likes to pull. There's a lot of levers for this champion, and a little pull on one like influences all 4 or 3 or 6 or 20 of the others.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's so different from any of the other champions that you have out there that they have nothing else to base it off of. So they're making little tweaks here and there to see if it works. And someone mentioned in chat that like he is really good. The best way to use him is to get your jungler in to gank a lane. But if that's what you're playing him for, in my honest opinion, I'd rather play Thresh. Yeah, I mean, you have more CC, you have more lane presence, you have more poke, and you have better team fight presence, and then you can just lantern somebody in. So, but he is like, his ganks are still really good though. If you can use that, his ganks. If you see him disappear and go like around the corner, then you just need to back off, because it's kind of like Thresh throwing the lantern. You need to back off for a minute to make sure that no one's there. So into roaming supports, we can go over Blitzcrank, because he's actually pretty good at leaving lane and going and affecting mid or something like that. So, Chira, why don't you go over the changes for Blitzcrank?
All right, so they just changed up Blitz's W, which is his overdrive, and they removed the movement speed, which was like 16 at rank 1 up to 32 at max rank, that you gained over the 8-second duration of the ability. And instead now, as soon as you use overdrive, you get a really big boost of movement speed. So you get basically at rank 1 over twice the movement speed that you would have gotten at max rank and what the ability was before. The only difference is now that movement speed rapidly decays over 5 seconds. So you get this massive boost of movement speed that you get for a few seconds that just gets it quickly gets much slower. And then once those 5 seconds are over with, you're slowed for 30% of your movement speed for a second and a half.
Right. This pretty much shifts it from using W to zone somebody, just zooming around for a full 8 seconds and fearing that he's going to grab you any second.
Right.
Now it's more of a surprise attack. Like, boom, he just got around the minions and grabbed me. Hopefully.
It's a surprise sort of thing.
Some give and take.
It's to give him that little burst of mobility to position very, very quickly into a way where he can just grab you right away, rather than just having this movement speed buff that he can kind of do the same thing, except now it's
make for more spectacular plays.
Right. It's going to be way more surprising than it was, but at the same time, now this tool isn't as good as it used to be in being able to escape really quickly.
Yeah,
or like,
you got risk now.
Yeah, because like if you in the past, if you got in a bad situation, or you needed to catch up to somebody, like that chunk of move speed's pretty solid for the full 8 seconds. And since you weren't being punished for using it at the end of the duration, like you use it, you can get away, whatever. Now if you use it and you're not able to get to a turret or your team or a point where they can't chase you down, you're basically gonna get punished for using an ability in the past that you were able to use in
I wonder if you can cleanse that.
I don't know.
That'd be interesting to see.
But
at
the same time, as interesting as that would be, for an ability that, and this isn't an ability necessarily on a short cooldown, but for an ability that you can use twice to 3 times in a minute, why are you gonna take cleanse for that? Like,
I think
see a QSS.
I think that it offers a lot of good counterplay, because before he used to, I mean, for 8 seconds he could just zoom around. That was a lot of, like DeCloud mentioned, that was a lot of zoning potential.
Right.
You had to be really careful about how you positioned. So now if you successfully position against him, then you have this huge window where he's really, really vulnerable. And you can poke him, you can engage on him. Like, it's really difficult for him to get back into position. So he can't just do that thing where he like zooms around and then like 5 seconds later he's doing it again and he has like Mobies and that, and it's impossible to escape him. And then the same thing, he would chase you down out of fight. So no matter how fast you were, you just almost couldn't juke him. You had to, instead of trying to run away, you had to really make sure that you juked his pull, because he could pull and then he could use Mobies and he could zoom at you, and then his pull would be up and you would still be within range of him. Like, it was just really hard to get away from him.
And if you were busy juking, he could just catch up to you because you're going zigzag.
And then he punches you.
Knock you up and not even use it.
Right, and then he punches you and then he grabs you, and it's like, okay, well, I spent all that time trying to avoid you or whatever. But I think that this is what's interesting about it, is this was one of the few skills that actually punishes you for using it,
right?
Technically,
or you just have to use it intelligently,
right? But in terms of, like, there are several skills that you lose health for, if you use it, or obviously when you use a skill and you don't get anything out of it, you have skills on cooldown. But other than Rumble silencing himself if he's not careful, I can't think of anybody else that if you use a skill and you don't make anything out of it, you're actually put at a significant disadvantage. Other than just basic cooldowns.
You're way faster than before for those maybe 3 seconds, and then maybe it decays at the 2 second, or maybe the 3 second mark. But so you could do kind of in at the turret range and out after a grab kind of thing.
And this then turns into like the risk reward thing now, where
exactly,
like, you get it. Yeah, the risk is there of you might be slowed if things don't go out as well as they could, but at the same time, if you have a good understanding of that champion, you get to immediately zip to a spot where you're potentially going to be able to grab somebody way faster than you would have been otherwise. So like hooks that you wouldn't have gotten off in the past, as long as you can land that Q, you can potentially get off now, like very quickly. Like, say there's a minion wave in a certain spot, you just pop that W right away, you move like 2 steps to the side and you have a clean shot at him and you can grab him. How many times have you seen somebody flash just because a hook was about to land as it was anyway? Or like, I mean, again, this isn't going to be that. This is going to detract from the Blitzcrank players that aren't that great at landing the Qs, because now not only if you use W to reposition to get that Q, if you don't get that Q, they can immediately turn and flip it on you, because a lot of Blitz players will max Q first because the damage on it's actually really solid if you can land it. And then that damage is going to be missing. You didn't pull them into a bad spot, and they can just follow up on you, and you're going to be running away from them slowly because, well, what else do you have? Your E, because that's going to be super effective in a 2v2 lane. So it's going to make people have to decide and like really have to execute that positioning and grab way better now than they necessarily would have needed to in the past.
Right.
Last thing on this is a bit of a fun fact, that this movement speed reduction is not new for this ability. W a long time ago had this exact same mechanic where after a period of time he would become slower. Way back in patch 1.0.0.106, they removed that movement speed reduction. So it's been
It's been 5 years.
They had reasoning for removing it way back when. Now they put it back in.
Cool. Well, let's see how it works. It'll be funny to see the people who don't read the patch notes and see Blitz like fly at them. But
take an extra turret hit.
All right, let's move on to Darius. DeCloud, do you want to go ahead and read Darius?
Oh, sure. Darius. Pretty much what they're trying to do is make him scale a little bit better into the late game with his ultimate, Noxian Guillotine. They call it Athene's Unholy Dunk. It now refunds 25, 50, 100 mana on a kill. So if you kill, you get a little bit more mana to use it again. because you have that short window. Except now at rank 3, the cooldowns just reset completely. So at rank 3 of his Nox and Guillotine late game, if you kill somebody, it's like it was before they did that little tweak. You just keep doing it. You can kill their entire team. So his Duncan Do Nots turn into Duncan Do's.
Oh God.
I actually like that one. That one was pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be playing Darius more and trying this out. I really like Darius. He's a fun champion.
This is a huge quality of life
back his
change.
old feel.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, after they made the changes that, up until, I guess, today when the patch went through, before they had changed his R up from how it originally was, where it did refund on kill, and
cooldown.
Now it did. Yeah, the cooldown, and now it didn't. Even if you got that first kill off, the fact that your mana pool was pretty low, just as it is anyway, and you were probably spamming your Q, you weren't getting more than 1, maybe 2 at max guillotines off.
Yeah.
Now,
you get
I am all down with being able to dunk anytime I want again. That sounds great, and that's like I used to love playing Darius, but when you couldn't do that, it took his gimmick away, which was kind of a big part of his driving force, being able to execute if people were around him and at low health. Like, you were just you weren't that great in a team fight unless you were fed, and you progressively didn't get like that much stronger after your mid-game power spike in the late game. So the only thing you had going for you was that massive kill potential if you were able to get that 1 kill off and keep rolling that into other kills throughout the fight. Which
now it says on kill for the mana return, but I know the way it works right now. I think there's a certain window.
Yeah, the way it works currently is if you use it and they die within like a few seconds afterwards.
Right, you don't have to use that to execute them, but if you use it and they die within a certain amount of time, then you get that little temporary reset, like Kat has on her stuff now. But is that how it's going to work with the rank 3? If they die within a certain window, whether you use that to execute or not, are you going to get a full reset?
I'm not sure. It doesn't specify. Yeah, we'll have to try it. I don't think this is going to make him like crazy strong, but it will help a lot of his, like we said, quality of life. He had serious mana problems anytime he was team fighting. Well, so this will help a lot. And then his biggest thing was he snowballed lane early. He was a really strong lane bully, and he helped shut down late game carries out of the top lane. And he'll still be able to do that. It's not going to affect that at all. So, he still doesn't have a ton of CC. His CC isn't that great. And his apprehend is only 550, so he still gets kited by a lot of champions.
You use the CC more as an auto attack reset than you do for the actual slow.
And it doesn't, so he still has that problem where he doesn't have great initiation. He doesn't even have great follow-up initiation. But this just adds a little bit where, in solo queue, he has that fun factor to him again. And he has an opportunity to do more in team fights, whereas right now, or before now, he would kind of go in, he'd blow all his mana, and then he was just whacking people with an axe. Yeah, and that gets kind of boring at some point, and you lose your usefulness.
His gimmick's back, and his gimmick was a major part of his identity. So, again, thematically as a champion, that's good. But
late game Darius was always weak. I hated playing champions where you have a timer, because I like to take my time. I'm an old man, I don't like I gotta win within this certain time frame, or Darius becomes useless. I like now that he has a late game that you can actually take advantage of, and he can still be relevant all game long. I love his his apprehend, that little hook. One of my favorite champions in the original Dota was Magnetor, who had the thing where he yanked everyone all around him. And he's got the closest thing to other than Diana, which is kind of like a faux one. But he pulls everyone right to him. It's sweet, his AoE potential. And then just to have him knocking people down with his dunks, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna play him a lot
there's
more,
also something to be said that, in a way, the shift back to more tanky top lanes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
also
thinking.
Sort of Darius has an advantage on them early, but as the game goes on, he's not exactly going to be killing them.
But will this give enough power in team fights late where people will start picking him more? Because if you can shut down that tank completely in lane, it's going to be a long time before they get tanky enough to survive you in team fights.
Well, that's true, but then it always comes back on Darius is also a champion that's very easy to gank because he's passively pushing the lane. If he's using his Q to harass and he's standing near a minion wave, he doesn't have any escapes on his own other than Flash, which I don't know how many of you have played against that many Dariuses, but they love using that Flash early to try and get that apprehend on you, especially when they hit level 6 to try and cheese that kill. And it becomes one of those things that, yeah, he could shut down a tank early, or that tank could just sit back, be somebody like Maokai or Sion, who can just kind of shrug it off a bit, and then you get into the mid game where you're still kind of doing what you do anyway, and you're probably not dying to him.
He's kind of like Jackson. That level 6 is a huge power spike for him because it's true damage. So you are playing against, let's say you are playing against the tanky meta, you're doing true damage. So even if they're the only way they can,
unlike Jax, he doesn't keep scaling.
Well, he doesn't,
but
right?
Darius
but at
is
least
good
the ability
against
scales.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least his ability scales off of AD, and now you're going to have more mana to do it, and you can.
Well, Darius has been like the bruiser killer. Like if you pick the bruiser, he was the guy that people would pick to deal with you because he out-bruised you early. He bruised the crap out of you. Or if you picked an assassin into him, yeah, you wanted to play that Tryndamere, but you're not level 6 yet. Have fun dying, especially if he hits 6 before you, because you're not using that E to engage on Darius. Like he was that champion that you would pick if you wanted to deal with other people's like aggressive top lane choices. And then with the old Noxian Guillotine nerfs that they had done, it took away from that, and we didn't see him anymore. Like I mean, he was a troublesome champion for a while, and then they got like, especially back in the teleport E days where you could E teleport and grab people from wherever back into your base. I don't know if anybody except for me and some of the people in here remember that.
That was fun.
Like
same with Skarner.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing Darius again just because there's just something that feels so good when you jump up in the air, you smash a giant weapon down on somebody, and they basically implode. So like, I miss that, but at the same time, I don't miss playing against that. So I'm gonna just hold off on my judgment until we see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna make him crazy OP or anything, but it should help him a little bit. As for Eve, she had her hate spike damage increased from 30, 40, 60, 75, 90 to 40, 55, 70, 85, and 100. She does a little bit more damage, so her clear should be better. It's still significantly less than when they nerfed her back on 4.13, so it's not really fixing a lot of the problems that she had. She's mostly used anyway because she forces counterplay. You have to buy pinks around her, and she's still going to be strong at what she does. If she snowballs lanes early, she can really get her team ahead. She forces you to counterplay against her, but she's really hard to build teams around. And she doesn't have a lot of utility, although her engage is pretty good. So, I don't know. I just don't think she really still fits into the whole jungler meta right now, which is really, really tank heavy and really utility oriented. So, I'm not sure that this is really going to help her. But, Chira, you probably have better insight because don't you play her?
Wrecker played her way more than I do. I've played her every once in a while. I'm not a huge fan of this champion in her current incarnation, just because after the nerfs, it took away so much power from her that there isn't really like, yeah, she again, we're going back to gimmicks. She has her stealth gimmick, but how powerful is that when she doesn't really have to follow up on even being able to get to somebody from awkward angles, or even if they've warded or anything like that. I haven't seen Eve. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that
you have to be tanky. This Q is a sustained damage. Q she can spam.
Right.
So 10 extra damage is actually pretty significant when she's spamming it on you.
Well, that's the thing.
But it's still
pays
like
off.
20 less than it was before they nerfed it. So it's still significantly less.
It pays off.
Part of what the
nerfs,
nerfs,
tick or ban.
Right,
So.
and part of what hurt her with those nerfs was not just like her damage in lane, but it was her clear. Her clear time got significantly.
Well, she was taking so much more damage too because she wasn't able to clear as quickly. And if she's taking that much more damage, she's not going to be able to gank as often, so she can't even take advantage of her stealth.
They're slowly buffing her a little bit by bit every few patches here and there. Like she has now better mana in the jungle.
Right.
Now she has more damage on her hate spike, so she can use that mana to spam it more in the jungle. So looking at all these little changes here and there may not seem significant, but when you put them all together,
over time, she's going to creep back into the people's repertoires.
I want to see.
And I
how
don't think she's really bad as a tank right now either. I think with some of the tank items and you build Cinderhulk on her, I think that she's actually a decent tank coming out of the jungle. So I personally, I think that that's probably the most effective way to play her right now. But I'm not sure that this is really going to bring her back into the limelight like she used to be. But I guess they don't want her pick or ban anymore either. So they're going to like slowly tweak her because it's really hard to balance stealth with everything else.
Well, that's the thing too.
Stealth in, it's hard.
When you have a champion that completely changes up the warding game for the team that's playing against her, if that champion's even a little too powerful, it can be extremely overwhelming.
Right. All right. So who wants to take Fizz? Does anyone play a lot of Fizz?
I'll take Fizz. All right. So basically, here's what happened with Fizz. Okay, Riot said we fucked up. That's what happened. Back in 5.2, they made some changes to Seastone Trident, and now they're undoing those changes. The passive damage on Seastone Trident is now a flat 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, which does not change, but it's plus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% of the target's missing health. So it got that missing health portion back on the passive part. The active damage loses that missing health percentage. And now it does a flat 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 damage, 0.25 ability power ratio.
Are they trying to bring it back to being built
back to
as
AP Fizz?
Yeah.
Goodbye, tank, Blade of the Ruined King, Trinity Force Fizz. I loved you. You were so much fun. You were so OP.
But this only slightly nerfs that. Like, I don't think this takes AD Fizz really out of the equation. They're trying to bring back in AP Fizz, but the reason that AP Fizz disappeared was because DFG got removed. Well, yeah, DFG got removed and the alt changes. I mean, so I don't think that this fixes AD Fizz because I think AD Fizz is still going to be pretty strong.
I think,
but hopefully it starts. Maybe it does. But
I mean, because it was per hit. That was 8% missing health per hit, and now that's only 8% over 3 seconds, and it doesn't stack when you hit it. You're just resetting the tick count.
Yeah, it was stacking with Bork.
Yeah,
you know. Now it's not. So
right, that's true.
That was a whole thing.
So we'll see. It is I don't know. I think it's a small nerf to it, but we'll see. It could be a significant nerf. I mean, none of us really saw.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
I still hate him because he's so slippery.
Yeah, he's so annoying to play against.
He is.
I got you. No!
Yeah, exactly.
You son of a bitch.
Get off your freaking paw.
It's always right when you go to use a CC too, and it's like...
It is. Every time.
Damn it. Yeah.
You know what's funny about that ability, though? Even if they made it so it reduced all damage by 90% or something like that, that ability would still be ridiculous. Like with
the fact, like if they nerfed it to that from just
from what it is now, if they changed it, like that ability would still be phenomenal, even if it was like a 90% damage decrease.
Well,
even if it was a 70% damage decrease, it'd still be great.
Like Cho'Gath and Scion, you know, he does that and they're still looking down. Hey, you're not out of my way.
Yeah.
I'm still going to nom you. Look at you. You think you're out of my way? No, smack. Come on.
All right. So Garen had his cooldown reduced for his Demacian Justice, his R, from 160, 120 to 80 to 120, 180. So his 1 and or his 6 and his 11?
Yeah,
11. Yep.
Whatever. His first and second ranks of his R, right?
4 seconds less on the
got significantly reduced. I don't think it really. I mean, Garen's not played because he has no utility at all. He doesn't have any CC. He has no regular utility. So that's part of his problem. But
he just has to do with the silence, a reliable, spammable silence.
The thing he has going for him is that he gets to a point where he's so tanky that he disregards everybody in the enemy's front line.
And he just walks on you.
Yeah.
He just like, yeah.
Why don't I play him more? That seems like
I know, right?
the champion I'd like to be.
Because he's not a good champion.
He's
just
terrible.
not a good
champion.
Though
I will say, with the changes to Demacian Justice, now he can basically use it to get a kill, go back home, walk back, and it's up again real soon. So
yeah, you don't want to, like, now you have to be really careful about when you use it. It's almost spammable.
Yeah.
Like when you're in lane. It gives you a lot more lane pressure.
Like 2 minutes when you're just focusing on last hitting and like trying to trade or whatever. 2 minutes isn't shit. Like you won't even the cooldown's gonna feel really short.
It's
compared to what
it's
it used to
help.
be.
Riot still has a lot of plans for him,
Yeah.
so they're
Yeah.
working on Garen, but this is a little
Yeah.
step in that direction. So
Part of
It's
me feels like
actually
they
a
only-
big difference.
yeah,
So-
early game, which is where he kind of Garen is a safe champion. All you got to do is not get hit, and you pretty much have sustain.
Passive
forever.
sustain forever.
That passive sustain is insane.
It's a
But-
Mundo ult, but you get it for
But
just
you have
not
the
getting hit.
Scions. You have the Scions, the Lissandras, and they can hit you every 7 seconds to make sure your passive isn't active. So that's what I always do. I see a Garen, and now it's a nice little visual of seeing him sparkling green. Oh, let me go throw a minion at him, and now he's not sparkling anymore.
Garen's a really good example of like play what you want to play, because even though Garen's not great at any particular thing, there is a challenger player who plays nothing but Garen, and he's freaking challenger. So
Yep.
just because like if someone may not be meta doesn't mean that you can't like be really good with them.
Well, and that's the like people who've played Garen and are really good at Garen know exactly when they can just completely be overbearing on their lane opponent, especially if they know matchups pretty well. It gets to the point where they'll smack you a couple times and then you're zoned out for as long as Garen wants you zoned out.
And his W, it's a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
It really does make him tanky. It warrants him yelling Demacia on the W. You expect him to yell it on his ult. He doesn't. It's his W that he yells Demacia
So
on.
if you want to feel really good about yourself, right before you ult, you should hit W. Is what Declaw's trying to say.
Oh, that ultimate. Yeah, but he is. You guys remember the preseason one and season one where all the memes came out with Garen coming out of the bush?
Yes.
The whole spin to win thing. That's when Garen was considered the most OP champion in the game, because in that time,
multiple Sunfire
he
capes.
pretty much was, And I mean, I love the memes. Like, there's ones with cartoons of Riot employees going to work, but then they stop and they're like, oh my God, there's a bush there. We can't go to work today. Garen's going to jump out and kill us. But I like to see that they're working on him and they're slowly pushing the right direction. Darius, his nemesis, had much better ult patches this patch or changes.
Right.
But
That's why I feel like they made these changes just because Darius had ult changes, and the two are like mirrors of each other.
Well, and it's funny
we
too
have to touch
because
on Garen too.
when Darius came out, everybody's like, "Oh, you want to counter Darius? Just play Garen into him and shit all over him."
All right, let's move on to Hecarim. Declad, do you want to go over Hecarim changes?
Yeah, his base, he's pretty much nerfed this patch. His base health regen, 9.26 to 7. And his base mana regen, 7.5 to 6.5. So his level 1, his start, was nerfed. They didn't nerf any of his scaling later on in the game, et cetera, et cetera. But what they're doing is they're toning him down a little bit, his innate staying power. So it's a little bit easier to deal with him out of the top lane right away. I guess they're trying to say, hey, play him in the jungle. That's where he belongs.
Yeah, I feel like these regen values were designed for him to be in the jungle, and then people just took him in the top lane and he's sustained forever, and they're like, whoa, no, don't do that. That's
Right.
too powerful. Let's turn that down a bit.
Right.
Yeah. He's still good, though, I think.
Yeah, I think he'll still be a good top, but...
Well, that's the thing. Like, even with these changes, oh no, so now you can't be as risky of a playmaker in trading with people as you were last patch. That's not that necessary. That's not a bad thing health-wise for top lane.
Which I'm glad. It's not like they're completely saying, no, don't go top. You know, he doesn't belong there now because this will totally ruin any chance he has. He's still good. A solid pick. It's just he was kind of his sustain was a little bit too much with his W and all those base values. So
yeah, I think they're just trying to bring his sustain in line with other top laners so that he's not so overbearing. Okay, so Chira, do you want to go over Kassadin?
Yeah, sure. So basically, they made the mana stack for Rift Walk, instead of being 20 seconds long, it's 15 seconds now.
less of a window to use the extra power and have it cost more mana, or what's the benefit of that?
Well, it also resets faster, so we can use it again just from mobility.
Right.
Is what I gather from that.
Right. That's what I took from it too.
Because eventually,
I think it's a pretty big buff to him.
Yeah.
Personally.
Eventually, it stacks so much that he can't just use it anymore because it costs too much mana.
Right.
So that will reset sooner, and he'll be able to use it again and start stacking from zero. Yeah, he's getting little buffs too, and that's scary because
that is scary as
I
hell.
was gonna say,
whenever Kassadin's strong, he
it's
enters
gonna
into
hit that
baptism.
point where people forget about him, and then he makes his way back into the scene. It's like, well, Kassadin's broken his shit again, and nobody knew it.
Forecast. Everyone's gonna say nope, and he's gonna go
Yep.
back behind
Smack
bars.
him right back down to either ban prison or nerf to shit to the point where nobody can play him.
The Theodore Teabag Bagswell of champions.
He's always so up and down. He is. So Maokai, they nerfed his health restore a little bit. So instead of 7% of maximum health in all ranks, it's 5, 6, and 7 based on his. He gets upgrades at level 7 and 13. So this will help a little bit with his sustain and lane, where you'll be able to lane a little bit better against him. He'll have a harder time against the people that he already had a difficult time with, so he'll have to use his E to farm more in those situations. But generally in those situations, he always ran out of mana first before he ran out of health anyway.
That's what I was
So
thinking, too.
But I noticed.
yeah, so while this will make a little bit of a difference, I don't think it's going to be too devastating
This
to him
just-
by any means.
This comes down to one of the things that's similar to why they changed Hecarim. It's just
Yeah.
he gets a lot of passive staying power from his passive. So they just,
Go
tweak the passive just a little bit, and they're going to see how it goes. But 7% of your maximum health in the early game's pretty awesome, considering if you're playing against a champion. Let's even use Hecarim, for example, who if he uses his Q a couple times, you get a 7% health, heal, just for him using an ability.
I feel like this will be noticeable until he backs and gets his catalyst.
Well, that's
And
how
then-
it always has been. Like, as soon as he gets that catalyst, a lot of the mana issues are band-aided for a while. Health, band-aided right now. Like, the catalyst is going to be...
Yeah, there's not going to be a change after he gets the catalyst. He's still going to stay there
it's
forever.
going to be more of his, levels 1 through 5.
Yep, pretty much. That's how I see it.
All right, do you want to go over Nidalee Punch? Actually, why don't we let... You can go over Quinn, since you're 80.
All right, for Nidalee, all they did is they changed her base health from 541 to 511, and her health per level has been nerfed by 10 per level. And their reasoning for it is just because how good Nidalee's been. They want her to have to actually think before she lands an ability and jumps in to murder your face, rather than... and actually make it so you have the ability to blow her up if...
A little more risk.
Yeah,
jumping
if she commits to something.
she'll still heal it all back.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Especially if she's just continuing to build full AP and not caring and spearing you from half the lane away. But this is just to make it... I mean, she might be... If she doesn't have blue buff, she might be a little bit more injured out of the jungle, or even in lane. She... requires a less harass to kind of scare her off a little bit. But it honestly is just going to make the people that are used to just, I landed my spear, now I'm going to go in and try and blow them up immediately, be like, okay, is that Xerath going to be able to immediately stun me and then blow me up in the time it takes me to pounce onto him?
Think about it this way. Late game Nidalee is still going to be a terror because you're only losing 180 health from what you are now, as far as fully level 18 and the base health value. That's nothing. That's like a third of an ability. So, yeah, it's good. It's good for the early game, though. It's her snowballing that in the beginning of the game where she's such a bully that this will hit.
What about in terms of her clear? Is it going to make it more difficult for her to gank because she's going to have less mana?
Not if she has blue buff. She's just going to keep healing herself.
Less health. Oh, okay.
The thing with her, and this has been hit on numerous times. Pros have said it. Whatever. It's if you have blue buff on her, you can do whatever the heck you want.
Right.
And she just has everything in her kit to be able to just be a giant pain in the ass with that blue buff. So. Yeah, I mean, if she isn't able to use her heal on herself throughout the jungle, it is going to hurt her a bit. But you can band-aid that with certain item buys rather than just building full AP right off the bat. You can get another item to help your mana if you absolutely need it. And if you are getting blue buff, okay, cool. So again, now you can't just 100% commit to fights that you don't know if you're going to survive. This isn't a giant health buff, but it will influence her health more so in the early game, because early health means a whole lot, just because you have less health to survive bad engages or anything like that. So
it's another one of those where they're compounding nerfs patch to patch. So it's starting to pile up for her now.
She's still good.
She might come out of banned prison, but she's still good.
All right. Do you want to go over Quinn Punch?
You should talk Quinn and Teemo.
Quinn and Teemo have the same change. They're basically affecting how blind works. So blind now triggers on the on-attack launch from the on-attack declaration. They explain what on-attack launch is, which is different between ranged and melee champions. For a ranged champion, attack launch is when the missile is created from the ranged champion, when they launch their arrow. And for a melee champion, it is when the attack hits the enemy champion. For on-attack declaration, they don't say what it is. I assume that is when you right-click somebody and you declare that you're going to attack that person. So previously, blind would check when they right-clicked you instead of when the attack launched. So if they right-clicked you and then you blinded them before they launched their attack, they could still hit you, which was always confusing. That happened numerous times, and Quinn players had no idea what was going on. They're like, what the fuck, you killed me, but I blinded you. This is why, because they right-clicked before they got blinded. Now, they can right-click before the blind, it won't matter, because it's going to check for the blind when their missile leaves their body.
Perfect explanation.
I hope that's not too confusing.
No, the same with Teemo's blinding dart.
Yeah, Teemo's is the exact same way.
So it's not when Teemo or Quinn launch the attack, it's when the victim who is blinded launches the attack.
All right,
Yes.
so Rek'Sai, her Q got nerfed a little bit. It's 0.3 bonus attack damage or it's 0.2 now instead of 0.3.
Right.
And
It's
then
a slight
it's
change.
so small. And then her cooldown on her tunnels actually gets
it's
lower
not-
now as the team goes down.
It isn't the cooldown on tunnels, it's the cooldown on reusing them. So like in the past, if you were to just take a tunnel you already put down, it's 10 seconds before you can use that tunnel again.
Right.
Now it's only 6 seconds at max level. So
you use any tunnel, right?
Yeah, you can. Well, I mean, if you could use a tunnel and then go to a completely different tunnel and then use that one right away. Now you can't
Oh, okay.
So it's the reuse.
Can't go back and forth.
That's exactly it. So if you go into a tunnel, it used to be no matter what, it was 10 seconds before you could use that same set of tunnels again. Right. Now, at it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 as you level up the ability. At max level, there's only a 6-second interval, so you're effectively getting 4 seconds back on tunnel use.
That's
so
a nice little buff for her.
Yeah,
It'll
so
help late game in her team fights
late
and things
game,
of that
you're going to
positioning.
be able to move. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of ability to move around if there's tunnels up nearby.
Yeah, it rewards your tunnel network.
Yeah.
If you've got a good tunnel network, then you're on the clear.
So like, for example, say you're able to tunnel into a dragon fight where the enemy's already on it. You're able to steal it. In the past, if you didn't have flash up to get back over that wall, probably dead. Now, as long as you can survive for 6 seconds, which hopefully you can just take that tunnel right back to safety. Whereas in the past, you had to wait 10 seconds.
Well, now you still have to wait 6 seconds. 6 seconds is a long time.
6 seconds is a long time, but getting back 4 seconds is also a long time. So like,
yeah, exactly. 4 seconds is also a very long time. So, but still, the applications, I'm curious to see. It probably won't seem like a long time to people playing against Rek'Sai. Like, God damn it, why are they going back in already? But, you know, as a Rek'Sai player, you're going to be, come on. You're still waiting. It's not like you can instantly do little sneaky little things with it. But it does help her moving around, I think.
It does sound like it'd be a fun ability to use.
Yeah.
Okay,
I still don't like it. She's going to be hard to kill.
Yeah, she's so irritating.
Shen can be summed up so easily. You can ult more. That's what it is.
That's pretty much all it is.
You can press your R and save more people, or just be a pain in the ass and get the fights that you have no business being in.
Exactly. For Singe, his things are really easy too.
All right.
Essentially, for the 3 jungle Singed players out there, it got buffed slightly.
It's not just that, and this I'm going to completely use anecdotal evidence because this happened to me the other day. Was not playing jungle Singed, however, I was playing top Singed, and I was shitting on a Riven, and I decided to go and get the Scuttle Crab, and I threw it in the air, and it didn't do any damage at all. And meanwhile, I'm chasing this stupid crab back and forth. I want to say it took me, like, I had no reason to keep attacking this thing because I wasted so much time. But, like, it was the principle of the matter. I wasn't leaving until that stupid crab was dead. I must have ran the length of that lane 2.5 times before I was able to kill it. And my fling didn't do a goddamn thing to it. Like, I figured, you know, fling, it technically, I guess, I don't know if the reposition knockup counts with the hard CC. I would have thought that it did because I was like, oh, I autoed it. It took some damage. I'm going to fling it and it's going to take more damage. No, it didn't take any more damage. And that didn't do any % damage either. So it's bullshit. So, all right,
bright side,
I'm okay
though.
with this
At least when you had that fling, you didn't get crabs.
Wow.
or you're just picking the crabs off, yeah. But,
other thing, a lot
longer.
of really good high-level Singed players will, when they shove the lane and they push the lane, they'll actually go and they'll take the enemy jungle camps if they have proper warding. So that'll help
or
a
if
little bit with
they're
that
proxying and they take a wave, they'll just go
Right.
and they'll take a camp as well. So this is going to help out with that if you know what you're doing with Singe. It's also going to help reward you a bit if you do get an advantage early and you decide to take that Scuttle Crab just because sometimes it's great to do because say you are dominating your lane and you just want to go help out mid or something, you get that speed buff along the way because you got that Scuttle Crab, and between speed buff and ghost or whatever, you can do things faster. It's
so it's better, but it's just a bug fix.
Yeah,
So we're gonna move on to Tristana.
There you go.
Because we're running out of time.
Oh, Punch.
Okay.
Your Trist.
Yep. Punch can go over Trist because I'm sure he has things to say.
Why not? So they changed Rapid Fire again, and they gave it another ability. Basic attacks while Rapid Fire is active reduce the cooldown of Explosive Charge by 0.5 seconds. That doubles against champions. Note that you do not need to be attacking the target of your Explosive Charge. You could just be attacking anything while Rapid Fire is active, and you gain the cooldown reduction per hit. And they also changed Explosive Charge to account for this. They increased the cooldown by 2 seconds at max rank. It is the same cooldown at rank 1, which is 16. Max rank is 14. I thought about these changes a lot, and I don't know why Riot made them.
I think my personal opinion, and I could be completely way off, I feel like they're trying to encourage you to use the interaction between the E and the Q.
Right.
And it gives you another reason to do so, other than like a lot of the Tristanas I've played against would just throw their E on you and then walk away.
Now, I have a question. Does this potentially help out with being able to push turrets faster, that now you can throw your charge on the turret?
It does. It definitely does.
Okay.
But Tristana was already insanely good at killing turrets. Probably the best marksman in the game at doing so, which confuses me why they would make that ability stronger. Yeah.
Okay. It's not like she wasn't already pretty good.
They also mention that this might be a further incentive for cooldown reduction, and they give a hint for Ghostblade. I don't really see it. I don't think this is going to be like Lucian, where you just cast so many spells and you have enough cooldown reduction that all of your spells are off cooldown all the time, like with a 40% cooldown reduction build. I don't see that happening here. But I guess I could try Ghostblade again and see what happens, because Q, Rapid Fire, is now going to reduce its own cooldown when you're attacking somebody with a sticky bomb on them. And it's going to reduce the sticky bomb cooldown.
So if you're good at using the two in tandem with each other, you're going to be able to use them both way more.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, it encourages you AD carries to actually fight in team fights, like you're supposed to do, instead of just dancing around the edges. So,
damn those passive AD carries.
Good for me.
Hate those guys.
We're gonna go ahead and
damn it.
finish going over. There's only a couple more changes, so we're gonna go over them before we end. But Cinderhulk got a couple of changes. Essentially, they realized that they went a little bit overboard in the tanky junglers. So they reduced the health that you get from it from 350 to 300, and they upped the cost from 2200 to 2250. So they're not crazy changes, but they're knocking it down a little bit at a time. And this is just in a reaction to the fact that
tanky jungles now rule the meta
Yeah,
at the
it's-
moment.
Cinderhulk did what they wanted it to do, so they
Yeah.
don't want to like neuter it entirely.
Well, no,
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
item's still good. Yeah, it's going to be 50 health less effective early. It's going to cost a little bit more to get there. I mean, 50
Scaling's
gold,
still the
whatever.
same, though.
Yeah, so like it's still good. I mean, there's no reason to.
Oh, absolutely.
It's still probably the best one. Let's be honest. But
I still like Juggernaut on my tanky champions. I'm probably an outlier, but I love that cooldown reduction on there too. And it's just this item's great later in the game, and it gives you something to continue to scale for, which is awesome. You know, it makes any champion viable all throughout the game, which I said before with Darius.
I
like.
will agree with you. I miss
But I
the
like Juggernaut.
hell out of Juggernaut, but at the same time, without
This is nice.
yeah, the Cinderhulk's great. Like the
It is nice.
it's just a trade off. It's CDR.
But I put my
for,
Boar Queen in band prison, damn it. So maybe she'll
RIP.
creep out a little bit.
Nah, I doubt
I
it.
think what they're
No, I
doing
doubt
is
it
they're
too.
just trying to open up the meta for other options as well. Right now, I mean, it's pretty much there's like one main obvious choice, and the jungle seems to be like that a lot. Like there's always one like really dominant meta in the jungle.
Well, if you think about it, the jungle influences, at least from whatever changes go into the jungle, it influences all
absolutely.
the other lanes, because as soon as tanky, like, I mean, right now, tanks in top and jungle are pretty solid, but in the past, it's been that, let's look at Season 3, for example. You were expected to play a utility tank jungler because you were seeing a lot of, like, high damage bruisers or assassins come out of the top lane. So, I mean, that was like when Kha'Zix was being played top, when Zed was played top every once in a while. That was when Maokai was kind of at the peak of his jungling proficiency, and the odd one popularized that. It was not uncommon to see that sort of thing. Jungle choices influence the other lanes in ways that like mid lane choices wouldn't, and bot lane choices don't. And the only like actual other lane that does that same sort of thing is top lane to the jungle, because as if tanky top laners, and it doesn't even do it to the same extent, because you're not usually like you'd rather get money rolling on somebody who's going to be able to do the damage out with guaranteed money in top. So
Right. I kind of want to transition from what you said about the jungle choices into that gift of the toadstool change, the Gromp smite. They halved
Right.
its damage scaling from
Right.
10% to 5%. So now it's not, okay, I'm a tanky jungler with Cinderhulk, I get Gromp every time.
right.
Now,
Well, that's the
you might want to choose.
it makes it so that Cinderhulk and Toadstool are less effective together early.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Well, throughout,
Right.
as it scales.
Yeah. The 50. I mean, you're still going to be getting a pretty decent chunk of health as the game goes on, just from the bonus you have for buying Cinderhulk. But early game, that 50 extra health is noticeable as soon as you get it. So
Yep.
like you're still going to be by the end of the game, you're still going to be a little bit more than 50 health less, because of the way that item scales with whatever health that you bought. But it's whatever.
Wow, this patch was a perfect podcast episode patch as far as the meat and
Lengthwise.
potatoes that we could use.
Yep.
Yeah, so well done, Riot. Thank you. They listened to us.
The only other
Thanks,
real
Greg.
change to Summoner's Rift was Tiamat. They just had the cleaver, the passive damage. They changed the way that it scales. So instead of it scaling in 3 damage stages, it scales linearly. Oh my gosh, I have a cold. With distance. So
In the past, the way it would work is that like it would take the point at what you attacked, and if you're looking in the video, I have my fist up in the air, and there's that main spot that you attacked, and that's what took the most damage, and then there was like an area
Right.
near it that took less damage, and then there was an area farther than that middle area that took the least amount of damage.
there were like 3 circles.
Yeah.
And now
It
it
wasn't very
just kind of
consistent.
like, it's like, kind of like a gradient, like it fades out. So it's not a huge change, but it'll be a little bit of a change. You probably won't notice it though. I don't think many people will notice it specifically. So that about wraps up 5.7. So
Good job,
we will be
guys.
We
back
did it, guys.
Monday. We did.
We made it through an entire patch in an episode.
Now let's play Darius and
So
Eve.
exciting.
Let's do it.
Zooks.
Yeah, so we'll be back Monday. We'll probably give you some impressions of some of the champions that we play over the weekend, and hopefully we'll have some listener questions. So if you have any, then send them in to us at
feedback@trinityforcepodcast.com. Don't forget to send in your questions for the Fourwards podcast also. And don't forget to get your Optimus Poppy t-shirts. So we will see you again on Monday.
See you.
Bye,
We
guys.
love you. Bye.
Bye.